everything you have here essentially comes from a form of slavery.
Welcome everybody, it's Silas Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com, and delighted you could join us. We're going to be talking about a new adaptation of the Chekov classic, The Cherry Orchard. It's by Vinay Patel and is currently at the Yard Theatre in East London and then be transferring to Home in Manchester. It's a hugely ambitious production because it's set in space. So he's taking the family characters from The Cherry Orchard and setting them in space. It's an all-Asian cast, and Vinay Patel is one of Britain's most exciting writers. He was a regular writer on Doctor Who and penned the famous Partition episode. Do catch the trailer, if nothing else, on YouTube, and it gives you some idea of where Vinay Patel is coming from. So let's go and find out more about his adaptation of The Cherry Orchard. Where did the idea come from? How it's been in the gestation for a while, has it?
I knew I always wanted to write a big South Asian family drama. There was like this very particular picture of my grandmother,
right,
on a sari before she went to get on a plane to India, and she looked so stately. And I literally, the thought came into my head that she looks like the commander of a starship.
Oh wow!
And yeah, it sort of knitted when I was in the Doctor Who writers' room. I was thinking a lot about, of
course,
how do you marry a sci-fi idea with a tangible emotional thing?
Yeah.
And then at some point, somewhere down the line, the idea of going, what big family dramas do I like, or things about the end of the world, or about a weird a collection of people around a house. And I thought about The Cherry Orchard and how much I liked that play, and then I thought, I think the instinct to make that South Asian family within that context came first. There's a concept in SciFi called a generation ship.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you know what that is, but
no.
Basically what it is, it's the idea that you have a ship and you're trying to get somewhere far away, but the speed at which the ship goes wouldn't get the crew there in one generation. So it would have to be a few people, you'll have to live on there for a few generations. And in my head, weirdly, that really did make me think about the immigration experience. The idea that, for my grandparents, that trip they start, they won't get the full benefits of it. But the idea would be that someone like me and my sister would eventually. There is an obviously metaphorical connection to, as I said, like the act of immigration, not the immigrant experience, but the act of immigrating somewhere. And within that, I think there is a survival narrative, the idea of like, we're not at the place where we want to be. We set out with a lot of hope, but we're not at the place we want to be with. So there is a sense of a scrambling and a desire to just have a foothold somewhere, which I think, again, is something that is in me as a person, whether I want it or not, because I've carried that down from like my family.
Obviously, you had the idea about the family and going into space, and then what was it about the Cherry Orchard that made you want to really kind of take that apart and put it back together in the format that you've done now with this play?
I love the politics within Chekov plays, but particularly the Cherry Orchard. I sort of like that it tries to take a view of like the whole of society, the whole of the commons, and go and like very unfashionably gives sympathy towards like privileged characters. And it tries to understand where they are emotionally. I think it's still very good at going, and they're wrong and that world needs to end, but I think it's empathetic to how hard it is to lose something that's close to you, even if ultimately you know that it's built on something terrible.
And how did the idea for the spaceship develop, and putting the characters in the spaceship?
The subtitle of Cherry Orchard is a comedy. Like Chekov, like famously was like, it's a funny play, stop making it so sad and treating it like a drama. So it felt like to go with the slightly poppier sci-fi ideas felt like the right route in the first instance. Eventually I started driving more towards the ideas of loss and legacy and duty, and those things fit naturally on a starship in lots of ways because they're so far away from the things that would have grounded. And I feel, and again, that ties back to an emotional thing for me, in that like saying this thing about my grandparents dying, that is for me the last connection to the subcontinent, even though they came via East Africa.
What is it about sci-fi that you're drawn to as a writer?
I think sci-fi is such a good place to think about possibility and potential. And like, as a kid who grew up in the suburbs, the idea of something beyond where I was always really thrilling.
How much politics do you want people to take away? Is there I can see there is a sort of political dimension, but I think that became more aware of it when I was reading it, and the whole down deckers and the slight hierarchy that obviously exists, and how important is that to kind of enjoying the play or understanding the play that you've written?
Um, I think it's important in the sense that you understand what this world that we're looking at has been built on. So, like in the original, there is the Trofimov, the student character in the original. He has a very similar. It's really striking, actually. He has a very the way he speaks to Anya, who's Anju in this version, about that family. He
Mm.
says like almost exactly the same thing about how this is a legacy family built on oppression. Like all of this stuff that you've got is because of just the people who recently, the serfs who were recently emancipated, but everything you have here is essentially comes from a form of slavery and so which is it's like it's the original play is extraordinary in the sense that it has speeches like that which are very clear and very clear-eyed about how privilege has created itself and how it sustains itself, but also has a guy falling down the stairs like immediately afterwards. Like it sort of takes its play about ideas, but sort of treats the people giving those ideas with some silliness and suspicion. So I think in terms of the politics, it's useful as understand the emotional frame for which all those characters are living through and the history in which they're sitting in.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, it doesn't have to be the thing that's dominating the whole play, I think.
Excellent. Well, I wish you all the best with it, and when it goes to home, it'll be interesting as well.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much for your time, Vinay. It was brilliant chatting to you.